All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you again for joining us for our Leaders in Housing Counseling webinar. Today is September 15th, 2022. We here at National Housing Resource Center are celebrating National Hispanic Heritage Month. And what better way to celebrate than to have a webinar talking about the Hispanic Homeownership Report. So we say again, happy National Hispanic Heritage Month. There are a few things that we want to go over before we get started with our webinar for today. First of all, we want to know where you are watching from. So please put your city and state and the organization that you are affiliated with. We would love to see who all is joining us today. And for your information, this webinar is being recorded. So if there's a portion of this webinar that you missed, or you want to go back and review the information that's shared today, we will send out a copy of this webinar and all of the links or attachments that have been shared during this webinar in an email within 24 to 48 hours. Again, a copy of this PowerPoint presentation will be shared. Closed captioning has also been enabled for this webinar. So if you just toggle your mouse at the bottom of your screen, hit the CC button, and you'll be able to have the closed captioning for this webinar. There will be a portion for questions and answers at the end of this webinar. So if you have a question for any of our panelists, please put that question in the Q&A box and not the chat box. We don't want your question to get lost. So if you have a question, please add it to the Q&A box. Now, before I turn it over to Bruce, I do want to mention that we are having a membership drive. If your organization is HUD certified and would like to join NHRC, there is a wonderful mug that we have gotten that you will receive if you join NHRC within this next year. It helps us to celebrate our 10-year anniversary, and you guys are the first to see this mug here. I hope you can see it all. Here's the mug. It is so large. I don't know how many cups of coffee I can put in here, but I'm excited to get it. And excited to drink my coffee out of this cup. So if you join NHRC this year, or if you renew your membership with us, you will receive one of these mugs. So we're excited again to share it. If you need any further information about how you can join NHRC and some of our member benefits that we have with your membership, you can email me. My email address will be added to the chat box, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. So now I'm going to turn it over to Bruce, and he's going to take it from here. Thanks, everyone.
Great. Thanks so much, Ebony. And although I've been testing out the mug myself, and it's excellent. It's big enough that you can put soup in it. It's actually a pretty substantial mug. But the main reason for joining NHRC is to kind of really do the work we're doing, which is to promote affordable housing and to promote housing counseling as a vehicle for that, and really create more housing opportunities for people across the country. We'll talk more about it at the end of the call, but we're very pleased about the level of participation we're getting in the housing counseling community. But if your group isn't in already, I mean, you get a substantial discount on your credit reports through CoreLogic. You get we have the Savvy program, which is kind of a nice discount if you need it. It's great for your staff as well as for clients on your student loans. But the main thing is that you're really benefiting the work that we're doing across the country and in Congress. So just a quick, what are we going to do today? We're going to, Christy's going to give you an update on what's happening in Congress and the legislation and the work that's being done and the way that you could participate. Ellie's going to walk through the upcoming leaders calls because there's a bunch of them, and I think they're pretty interesting, and will give us and we really look to try to figure out those things that we can do that are the gaps in what people know about, emerging issues, places where you can take action. We want the leaders calls to really be a forum for sort of the cutting edge of our work, and you'll see how that all works. And we're celebrating Hispanic Homeownership Month, or I'm sorry, Hispanic Heritage Month. And partly what we're doing here is we're tapping into a study that NAHREP had done, which is really a fascinating look at Latino homeownership in this country. It's obviously a big part of our business, and but it's, I think, important to understand a lot of the subtleties that they have identified and what the opportunities are. So pretty exciting. And we have NAHREP presenting. We also have from the Urban Institute and from Unidos US and from Centro de Apoyo Familiar, all of whom are deeply involved in this work and can add to the conversation. And I think the lens that we look at all these things is how we can do our work more effectively in the communities we serve. So hopefully this will be helpful to all of that work. There'll be time at the end for questions and answers, and we'll talk a little bit about membership and the upcoming calls at the end of the call. So with that quick note, we're going to shift over to Christy. So Christy, what's happening in Congress these days?
Hi, everyone, and thank you all for joining us today for Hispanic Heritage Month. It's a fun way to kick off the month. It's until October 15th. So yeah, and as far as FY 2023 appropriations, the House and Senate have returned from a long August recess, and they have until the end of this month to either enact a continuing resolution or pass a spending bill. But more than likely, they'll pass a continuing resolution to keep the government funded under the current FY 2022 levels. So ultimately, for FY 2023, both of the proposals are out from the House and the Senate. The House's proposal does provide $3 billion more for THUD programs as opposed to the Senate's proposal. However, the Democratic leadership hasn't weighed in with Republicans, so funding levels could be lower in the final spending bill once conference committee takes way. However, we are weighing in with different offices, Republicans and Democrats on both sides. So if you receive an email from me, I hope you're able to join us and share your insights as housing counseling agencies. They really love to hear from you and know what's going on in the ground in terms of trends and how they can be helpful. So yeah, we'll definitely keep pushing for $70 million towards HUD's Housing Counseling Assistance Program. This is the funding level that the House proposed, and it's higher than the Senate's proposed level. So we'll definitely keep you updated on what happens next. We expect a written agreement around mid-December. I'm hearing December 9th, December 19th. So hopefully we'll hear more then. And then also as far as budget reconciliation, so the Inflation Reduction Act was passed. I'm sure you've heard about it. Even though it didn't include direct housing investments, it did include house related provisions to ensure that homes are more climate resilient. So some of the provisions that are include are the $1 billion towards HUD's grant-led program to improve energy and water efficiency for eligible affordable housing, $9 billion in consumer home energy rebate programs to make energy efficiency and electrification retrofits focused on low to moderate income consumers, $3 billion towards environmental and climate justice block grants to address disproportionate environmental and public health harms related to pollution and climate change. And yeah, so overall, some of these provisions would definitely align with our values. So I'm excited about that. And now I'll pass it on to the next speaker. Thank you so much again for tuning in.
Great. And so Ellie's going to come on next and talk about what we've got coming up.
Thanks, Bruce. Hi, everybody, and happy Hispanic Heritage Month. We have some pretty interesting sessions coming up. Next week, we are going to have Jackie Butts from from Some Clarity talk about her culturally specific homebuyer education program. And we're also going to hear from a housing counseling agency that went through the training with Jackie Butts and her program and how it has benefited the consumers that they're working with. So I encourage folks to take a look at this and come on to learn about what Some Clarity is offering here. It's a pretty exciting program. And then the following week on the 29th, we have folks from Bank of America coming to talk about their newest mortgage loan. So we've all heard a lot about this. It's been in the news. This is your opportunity to really hear all of the details and ask questions and give feedback to the Bank of America folks about what you think about the mortgage, and again, to get your questions answered. And then on October 20th, we're going to have folks from Student Debt Crisis and Savvy, who you've heard from before about student loan programs, come on and talk about the new student loan forgiveness plan. So, there's this, potential for a $20,000 forgiveness and easier way to apply for the student loan forgiveness. So please take some time to register for this one, put it in your calendar. The application for this program should be coming out in the beginning of October. And so we strategically scheduled this so that you all could learn about how to help consumers with this application, and what all of the details are about the application. And so with that, let's get to the main part of our agenda today. We're going to start with Nora Aguirre. Nora is the National Director for the National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals. She is committed to giving all consumers the service that they deserve, and she's going to talk with us today about their Hispanic Homeownership Report that was released earlier this year. Welcome, Nora.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone is having a wonderful September. And yes, I'm excited to share the findings in our wonderful report today. And so I just want to get started. Thank you for the introduction. I also want to say that I'm in the Las Vegas market. We help around 200 clients buy and sell, but 70% of my volume or our closings are really buyer side. So I definitely understand the buyer journey a lot. So a little bit about NAHREP is, NAHREP is the largest Latino business organization in the country with a mission to advance sustainable Hispanic home ownership. We're deeply committed to being an economic mobility organization. We are a network of real estate agents, loan officers, title company, and even housing counselors under one mission. We have over 40,000 members and 100 chapters throughout the country. We also want to make a point, this wonderful site is, as an economic mobility organization, at the heart of any conversation about wealth creation and bridging the wealth gap is a conversation about home ownership. At that core of what we do lies the fact that Latino homeowners have 28 times the wealth of Latino renters. It's a way that regular people can build wealth. A home is a very definition of family, food, culture, all really under the roof of a home, of a house. Next slide, please. Wonderful. So first, I want to get started with good news with the report. As of 2021, the Hispanic homeownership rate increased to 48.4%, up from 47.5% in 2019. 2019, excuse me. This increase consists because of the trend line. It's consistent with the trend lines that we've seen over the last 7 years. Since 2014, Latinos have added a total of 1.9 million homeowners to our market. So before we go any further, I just want to say that this is a testament really to the hard work of the real estate professionals in the industry. And we know how the real estate market has been in the recent years, especially for home buyers. It has not been easy for them. And really, the report, I was featured in the report with this comment. It's just saying that buyers really had to go through a lot of hurdles, go through a lot of barriers in order to really become homeowners. And professionals within that were helping him within this process really had to push with them along the way. So next slide, please. Wonderful. So this year we recognize that the San Bernardino, Riverside, Ontario metro area in California, locally known as the Inland Empire, has produced the most Latino homeowners, adding a total of 88,000 new Latino owner households. So next slide. Wonderful. And the best news is that more Latinos are mortgage ready today than ever before. Amongst Latino adults age 45 and younger who don't currently have a mortgage, 40.8% are mortgage ready. That's 8.3 million mortgage ready Latinos, which doubled from 2015. This was one of the most resounding trends we heard among the folks we interviewed in our report. Nearly all of them told us that Latino clients are significantly more ready today in their first meeting than they were 5 years ago. The main reason is they're seeing that there's a lot of education coming from the real estate professionals in social media. Next slide, please. So we want to go into opportunity markets, and here's a list that was produced in conjunction with Freddie Mac. The top opportunity markets for mortgage-ready Latinos are the Texas markets of McAllen, El Paso, Brownsville are really on top. Additional opportunity markets that are at the top of the list are Las Cruces, New Mexico, which we were really surprised within our network to see that in the Southwest area, Memphis, Tennessee in the South, Cleveland, Ohio in the Midwest. Next slide, please. But Latinos, what we're seeing is that Latinos are disproportionately impacted by housing inventory. This was a report definitely that we picked up last year. We know that the market is definitely going through a shift right now. So we saw the housing inventory being a huge reason, a huge barrier for our home buyers. But a big one as well is for sure our capacity to be able to have them get down payment assistance, right? So we see that Latinos are twice as likely to use FHA rather than their non-Hispanic counterparts. We're also seeing the Latinos are 81% more likely to get denied for conventional loans. So they are needing the down payment assistance product more than anyone else in the market, really. And so this really, during a market of bidding wars and competing with institutional buyers and homes selling above appraised value, it really posed a huge, just a huge complication for these home buyers that were really needing the down payment assistance. Wonderful. And next slide, please. Great. And so just what I wanted to definitely close with is I wanted to give you guys a little bit of what we see the dynamic really now in the current market, and really hopefully give you guys tools to support you in your local market so we can help more homeowners really take advantage of the tools and the resources that are there for them. And so what we're seeing is this market is definitely going through a shift, and this shift is bringing with it some opportunities for buyers again to be able to really have a seat at the table and be able to take advantage of purchasing a home. What we do see, though, very often is that we are seeing that the process for a lot of our Hispanic home buyers, when they're needing down payment assistance, is a process of them needing a lot of guidance. They need a lot of patience. Repetition is a big thing. And what we see is that many times they get maybe tired, worn out, or they just don't feel competent enough to really continue with the process. So many of them just kind of give up during the process. We also want to mention that we know housing counselors, especially here in my market, we see all the hard work, all the heavy lifting that they have to do every single day to help these home buyers get prepared, be mortgage ready, have the education, and also have everything they need in order to really go and get these programs. But what we are seeing, because the market tends to change sometimes with mortgage guidelines changing a bit here, what we end up seeing is that many times, because they've been in this process of getting educated or getting homeownership counseling, maybe 3, maybe 6 months, and then the rules change a little bit, that sometimes bears a big impact for them. They feel many times that it's a lot for them to continue pushing forward to the end. They felt maybe times that they were close, but then now they have another obstacle. And so what we know is that it truly takes a network of professionals that are passionate about first-time home buyers to really get these home buyers to the finish line. We also feel that right now it is absolutely going to be a good market for them to be able to obviously win when they get the opportunity to present offers. But we also know that the concern that a lot of the home buyers are having right now is obviously they want more information about interest rates, what's going to happen in that space. And so again, what we see is that the network between the professionals, the housing counselor, the real estate agent, the lender, and really everyone in between, if they have to get credit counseling, really that network of everyone working together and having the patience and the love for that first-time home buyer is really the key. To close, I just want to make sure to let you guys know that, you know, NAHREP, we have members all over the nation, 100 chapters. And if you guys are ever in need of local agents in your market, we also produce a report every year called the Top 250, which is the top 250 real estate agents, Hispanic real estate agents in really all the nation. And just this year, the reporting decided to go after looking for the agents that are actually representing majority of the buyers, right? So we have a lot of great agents within our network that really, you know, they live every single day with these home buyers, the challenges that they face, the insecurities and the doubts. And so whenever any of your housing counselors, anyone from your organization, your network really needs someone to help them understand, help them come together with better ideas and solutions for your local markets, please always feel that NAHREP is a resource for everyone. And so I just want to say thank you for the opportunity for us to present our report today. NAHREP is absolutely committed to continue pushing forward. We're excited about what the future holds. We definitely know that there's challenges that our community will face, but we're ready to face those challenges with them. And thank you again for the chance to present. Back to you, Ellie.
Thanks so much, Nora. I want everybody to be sure to check out the Hispanic Homeownership Report that NAHREP produced, and Christy will be putting the link to that in the chat box if you need it. And the link to the slides is also in the chat box, so you can access it there. So our next presenter is Yannicka Ratcliffe. She's the Vice President of Housing Finance Policy of the Housing Finance Policy Center at the Urban Institute. Yannicka joined the Urban Institute from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, where she served as the Assistant Director, leading its Office of Financial Education. Her work focuses on increasing access to financial systems that foster economic security and prosperity. So today, Yannicka is going to dive a bit deeper into the data around Hispanic homeownership. So data geeks, get ready. Go ahead, Yannicka.
Thank you, Ellie, and thank you, Nora, too. I want to echo the real excellence that is the NAHREP report on the state of Hispanic homeownership, and encourage everybody to read that report because it is also chock full of good data. But we will continue at this point. Next slide, please. Okay, so first we can advance to the next slide. We're going to just take a look at the current state of things and the outlook. We see, as you saw, the current Hispanic homeownership rate is 48%, which compares to a white homeownership rate of 74%. And so while that is a really great number to have attained, 48%, there is more ahead to achieve. And you can see that in the projections, when we look ahead to 2024, we estimate that most new homeowners will come from the Latino segment population. And this is because the chart on the right shows you that this shows you that number of new households formed by Latinos over the past several decades. And then the gray and the pink are the projected households that will be formed from 2020 to 2030 and then 2030 to 2040. Around 4 and 4.5 million new households formed by Latino households right now because they're younger, they're entering those prime years of forming households and buying homes. Whereas by contrast, when you look at the white population, looking ahead to 2020 and 2040, we see actually a real steep decline in the number of new households being formed because the white population is on average so much older, and you're seeing a lot of people basically age out of there on that chart. So this is just some background about why the momentum is so positive behind Latino homeownership. And if we could go to the next slide, that just is another way of looking at it. It shows the homeownership rate by decade of people in each age group, with the bottom line, the blue line, is the youngest groups. And as you can see, for each decade of age that people attain, it's just pretty steady that the homeownership rate goes up and up and up. So again, as the Latino population heads into their 30s and 40s and 50s, we're just naturally likely to see homeownership rates go up for the population as a whole, at least in terms of demographic trend. So if we can go to the next slide, it is, of course, not just a national story, it's also a local story. I may not need to go into this slide so much because I think Nora did a really good job of demonstrating the importance of thinking about what the particular opportunities are within each market varies, whether it's about affordability or high population numbers or high growth. It varies from place to place. But if you want to look at some of these statistics that I have presented about projected population growth, household formation, and homeownership rates by state, there's a link there at the bottom of the slide where you can look up your own state. And I see we have people here from all over. So we can go to the next slide, please. And then I think it'll be another slide after that. We're going to look just at some of the research and literature that's out there and how it speaks to what housing counselors can do. And again, Nora really demonstrated this both from the data that NAHREP has, but also from her experience actually doing this work every day. So as noted, there are higher denial rates for Latino borrowers for purchase mortgage applications, 22% almost, compared to 13.6% for white households. And their primary reasons for denial are debt to income and credit history. And as Nora showed, it is true that Latinos have been more prone to using FHA mortgages, and over the really competitive period of the last couple of years, sellers have been less open to accepting offers from FHA and DPA borrowers. I'm hoping that will ease as the pressure in the market eases as well, but we'll see. So if we could go to the next slide, please. In terms of helping borrowers overcome these challenges to qualifying for a mortgage, some of the issues for Latino borrowers are that it's harder for them to document income if they're more likely to have multiple earners and sources of income, or more likely to be self-employed. And also the fact that Hispanics have a greater likelihood of having a missing credit score or a credit score below 620. That's close to 44%, almost half of the population falls in one of those two buckets. So counselors can also assist in addition to helping document income, but help with improving credit or finding alternative ways to document credit and connecting them with programs where alternative credit is accepted. Next slide, please. And then there's just the general help navigating the process, as Nora described, how complicated it is and how daunting it can be. So there's just knowledge and confidence in persevering through the process, certainly assistance in the case where language barriers are a factor. And then just, counselors know about these special programs. A lot of households just do not know about. They're just not able to be informed about them. So that's a really huge role. Special purpose credit programs, community lending programs, programs for first-time homebuyers. And there are more than 2,000 down payment assistance programs available nationwide. So if you're not familiar with down payment resource, there's a link there too, which is a place where people can go and look up which down payment assistance programs are available in their markets. Next slide, please. And as again, Nora mentioned, and I want to emphasize, down payment assistance is really key. Lack of savings for down payment and closing costs is clearly a huge barrier for the primary barrier for all kinds of renters, but particularly those who have not gotten a lot of wealth, particularly those whose parents and previous generations did not have access to the wealth building opportunities of home ownership. What we refer to as first generation home buyers are much less likely to be able to come to the table with enough cash to close. And to the earlier question about why they may be using FHA loans versus conventional, I think that's a pretty big factor because of the lower down payment requirements for FHA. And also, of course, here down payment assistance programs can be a big factor. Next slide, please. And then I just wanted to bring to your attention some of the, special subpopulations and developments within the broader Latino market. We've talked about how it varies from place to place, but also we're seeing some interesting trends in increasing home ownership rates among Latina-headed households. So you can see that the home ownership rate for all types of households, all composition, married, and whether married or single, whether with or without children, on the female-headed household side among Hispanic households has gone up substantially from 1990 to 2019. So really big gains there, as well as, of course, on the male-headed household side. But we're really seeing some stark gains in homeownership rates among female-headed households that are, especially those that are married. And another sector is those households that need help accessing ITIN mortgage programs, which are available often from CDFIs and nonprofits and local lenders, and excellent performance on these mortgages, but you do need to know where to find them. Next slide, please. Now, of course, getting people into home ownership is just the first step. There is counseling that can provide resources to support the general quality of home ownership, the general financial wealth building potentials of it. And one of those is in the refinance space, where the research has showed that Latino borrowers were less likely to refinance and to take advantage of the historically low rates of the last few years. And in the process left a lot of money on the table. So this is an area as well where counselors may be able to provide some education and awareness. And then on the next slide, it's the, counselors have been enormously helpful in helping people navigate, helping homeowners and mortgage borrowers navigate times of distress. And we have seen that Latino families were very hard hit by the 2008 housing crash, and also by COVID-19, and just by virtue of that history and the lower wealth, maybe more vulnerable to future economic shocks and downturns. So it's really important to think about those loss mitigation, foreclosure prevention, counseling as well for this population. The research shows that Hispanic homeowners were less aware of the pandemic forbearance relief options than Black and white owners, as an example. So that continues to be an important role across the mortgage life cycle for housing counselors to help with Latino homeownership. And with that, I believe I have come to the end of my slides, but very much look forward to the conversation to follow.
Great. Thanks so much, Yannicka. That was exactly the kind of data that we were hoping for. So thanks so much for that. So our next speaker is Samuel Kenny, who is the Senior Policy Analyst at Unidos US. There, he focuses on developing, implementing, and evaluating long-term housing policies and programs. So he's going to spend some time, not surprisingly, talking to us today about current and upcoming policy work that specifically relates to Hispanic homeownership. Sam, thanks so much, and take it away.
Thank you, Ellie, and thank you all so much for being here, and of course to the National Housing Resource Center for inviting me and for hosting this webinar today. It's such an exciting time to be here, kicking off Hispanic Heritage Month like this, and it's the perfect discussion to be having today, right? And how important homeownership is to the Latino community, and really how much potential there is here. So very pleased to follow our friends at the Urban Institute and NAHREP with all of the great data that they shared today. It is certainly data that informs the work we do, so always really benefit from hearing what they have going on. So as Ellie said, I'm a Senior Policy Analyst with Unidos US, and I really focus on housing and homeownership. Next slide, please. So I want to give just a brief overview kind of about who we are for folks who may not know. So Unidos US is the largest Hispanic civil rights organization in the country. We've been around for about 50 years. We've long supported the Latino community in many issue areas with on-the-ground programming, as well as national advocacy. So sort of that high level and local level. And you can sort of see those issue areas on the slide. And one of the areas in particular that we're going to talk about today a little bit more that has really played a big role in our work is the housing and financial empowerment. So I want to share a few more details about that. Next slide, please. So Although I'm not going to spend too much time here on our program work today, because I know that many of the practitioners are actually in the room, in the virtual room. But I do want to give kind of a quick overview. So at Unidos, there are 4 primary housing and financial empowerment programs. We work with a network of 47 housing counseling agencies, folks who are on the call today. So good to see you. And we ourselves are a certified HUD intermediary. And then we also lean on our affiliate network, which is broader than just the housing counseling agencies, to support that work in various ways. So some of the key services of these programs include like direct housing counseling, supporting and training other agencies to engage in housing counseling, as well as outreach to the Hispanic community and various other items as well. So I do just want to share kind of like one number is collectively the network with support from folks on the call have literally served hundreds of thousands, I think pushing 900,000 people over the last several decades in some sort of housing counseling. So just big shout out to you all and to this network and all of the work that's ongoing. And as I'll talk about in a little bit, how important it can be moving forward to even increase and move the needle on Latino homeownership. Next slide, please. So we have definitely already heard from the true experts at NAHREP and the Urban Institute. So I'm not going to dive deep into the numbers at all, but I think it's sort of these key figures motivate the conversations around what Unidos is engaged in now and future policies. So just really quick, the underlying components of the Hispanic home ownership narrative really suggest great potential. So first, we know that Latinos are a key demographic to future home ownership. If you haven't checked out the urban work on this, I would highly recommend it. And then second, and this is actually a poll that Unidos recently did nationally, and we just released it, would be happy to share that information, and is that 90% of Latino non-homeowners are motivated to own a home. And so this is a really stark figure. You rarely get 90% of anything, and this helps formulate and focus some of our policy and initiatives moving forward, is recognizing that the Latino community has a deep desire to engage in homeownership, and there's real possibility to do so. And then lastly, as you heard Nora talk about this statistic as well, is there's a lot of Latinos who indeed are mortgage ready right now. So thinking, obviously homeownership is a case-by-case basis, and there are real credit challenges in the community, but these data really demonstrate a true potential for borrowers. And so this is really important for us to keep in mind as we're thinking about making progress in this area. Next slide, please. But I also do want to touch on, and Yannicka and Nora have noted this as well, that there are real challenges facing the Latino community with respect to homeownership, and this helps formulate kind of where we want to allocate our time and energy in terms of policies as well. So again, from a recent survey, we're actually going to be publishing these results very soon, so stay tuned for that, and we'll be happy to share with the network. But there was really 3 key topics that were the highest on the scale for being impediments to the Latino community to buying a home. And those were lack of savings, high prices, and high interest rates. So this is, I think, not a coincidence at this moment, as we're seeing increased inflation, as we're seeing rises in mortgage rates, and as we know that Latinos are disproportionately represented in some low-wage jobs. And as you heard from the other speakers today, down payment assistance is really important to help people get into homeownership. And we see that again reflected in August and September of 2022, that these are indeed key barriers and headwinds. And then lastly, I also just wanted to touch in terms of headwinds here is a question that we asked the community is, and we really heard this strong desire again for additional information around counseling, education, and home buying. And we heard that nearly 50% of Latino households reported knowing only a little or nothing at all about applying for a mortgage. So, as you all know, the financials around home buying can be complicated. There are many programs, and bringing that education and counseling role is so important to increasing Latino homeownership, and we continue to see that reflected in what we're hearing from the community. Next slide, please. So what does this all mean, and kind of what can we do next, and how is Unidos thinking about homeownership? And so recognizing the large upside that Latino homeownership and really the compounding benefits of homeownership with respect to wealth and closing the wealth gap, in 2021, Unidos made a commitment to transform the economic trajectory of Latinos through homeownership. And so specifically what this means is making an institutional goal that over the next decade, to build program, to build policy and research and communication frameworks to ultimately support the creation of millions of new Latino homeowners. So it's one thing to sort of continue to invest in our robust network, but it's another thing to say, you know what, we're going to think about this long term. We're going to put resources and capacity and commitments, and we're going to say over the next decade, we want to move the needle on homeownership by millions of new homeowners. So this is really exciting, but it's also a big and ambitious goal. So I want to break it down a little bit more, kind of where we're at right now and what we hope to be doing over the next couple of years. So first off, I would say this goal includes investing in our biggest asset. And our biggest asset is our affiliate base and our housing counselor network. So as you heard at the beginning, nearly 1 million people have received services. Part of success moving forward will be continuing to invest in and expand that network. But it also includes working to elevate the salience of homeownership with policymakers at all levels. So we know that housing success happens at the local level, it happens at the state level, and it also happens at the federal level. I'll talk about this more on the next slide, but we want to start cultivating that sense of urgency around this can be an action, homeownership, to help lift up the community, specifically the Latino community, but also the economy generally. There's lots of opportunity here. And then it also includes leveraging partnership, creating momentum, and what we would call telling the Latino story. So we want to make sure that there is a clear narrative and understanding about the potential and challenges of homeownership. And that's why we're grateful for the opportunity and space today, sort of to kick this off with Hispanic Heritage Month, and really start getting the word out there that this is somewhere where we're investing capacity and resources. So regarding next steps, 2022, this is really our planning year. So we've been hiring new folks. I'm relatively new to UNIDOS. I'm joining a wonderful team. We're engaged actively in market research, both at the local level and a little bit more at the federal level, working with our partners at Urban and at NAHREP as well. And we are engaging with other stakeholders sort of in the housing infrastructure area. So there's more to come on details. I would say we're close to getting towards more of a public announcement, but really happy to be talking about this with you all. And sort of upcoming in 2023, we want to go with a more of a public launch. So we will be hoping to engage you and your networks as well as we undergo that work. Next slide, please. And then lastly, I want to take some time to dive a little bit deeper on our policy priority areas. And so you can sort of see this little cycle on the slide over here. And basically, we're focusing in on 4 strategic policy areas to try to hit on each stage of the homeownership life cycle. So, you know, I think it's fair to say, like I said, we're still in this planning phase and we're still figuring out the details. So one part that's really nice about having this conversation today is also getting feedback. It's hearing from you all on kind of what you're seeing out there on the ground. So we're certainly open to feedback. But the first bucket is really home buyer readiness. So as you all know, there's systemic barriers to entry to home ownership. And so we're going to be advocating for increased housing counseling funding. So really getting people ready to engage in home ownership, as well as policies on the demand side, like down payment assistance and helping Latinos get over that bump of getting a down payment and entering into the home ownership market. And then also next is access to credit. So without credit, home ownership for low and middle income families is next to impossible. And there's also been systemic barriers in access to credit markets that have made it particularly difficult for the Latino community. So we want to work on policies that ensure that credit is available to self-employed individuals, to ITIN holders, to folks with high debt to income ratios, all of which these groups are critical to the Latino community. And then on the lending side, we also want to ensure that Latinos can access traditional mortgages, as well as optimize where we can and engage with partners around FHA loans. As has been discussed already today, Latinos are disproportionately using FHA loans. So where we can leverage our partnership and policies in that space to help improve those products, we want to do that as much as possible. And then next, we know that a first order condition to housing and homeownership is the existence of housing, and that there's a real and significant shortfall of houses generally in the United States, but really specifically starter homes and affordable homes. And as you heard from Yannicka, the Latino population is disproportionately younger, and as they're aging into buying homes, they often age into first buying a starter home. So really thinking critically about who we can partner with and where we can partner with them to increase the supply of affordable starter homes in the United States. This is an important piece for us, and we are trying to engage as much as possible there. And then lastly, initial home ownership is really only part of the story. So continued home ownership is really the real goal. And this means support foreclosure prevention efforts. This means ensuring the opportunity to rehabilitate or improve homes when home ownership is achieved. And then there's other issues we'd like to address, like ensuring intergenerational transfer of wealth and home ownership. We've heard from partners throughout the country that in some regions there's difficulty in transferring the title and to ensuring that that wealth stays within the family, and similar policies like that. So really trying to take a look over the next, with this year and into the next year, of understanding where it is that we can pull levers at the policy level to try to move the needle on Latino home ownership. Next slide, please. And then lastly, I just want to conclude today by really clearly stating that the fact that progress in Latino homeownership will only happen through partnership. And we have key partners in the room today, and there are many more on the slide here. And that as we are engaged in this 2022 planning year, and as we are thinking about more of a public launch in 2023 with our initiative to focus on Latino homeownership, we're looking forward to engaging with you all and engaging with other partners and understanding where issues may lie, and then also working collaboratively as we try to address issues at the local level, at the state level, and at the national level. So we're very excited about the collaborative landscape. We're very excited about other national initiatives that are happening and trying to dovetail with those as much as possible. And because we really think we can move forward together in a stronger way. So with that, I will conclude, but I'm definitely looking forward to the conversation later. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much, Sam. So we are gonna do Q&A at the very end. So first we're gonna hear from Walkiria Poole, who is the president and founder of Centro de Apoyo Familiar. They are a HUD-approved housing counseling agency, and Walkiria has been in the industry for 15 years in community development and the housing service industry with a focus on affordable housing and asset development. Walkiria is going to talk with us today about best practices for reaching consumers, which we've heard a lot about the need to do that, and for serving Hispanic and Latinx consumers. So Walkiria, take it away.
Thank you so much, and happy Hispanic Heritage Month to everyone. What a great way to start the Hispanic Heritage Month. And thank you so much for the invitation and everyone that is here attending this seminar. So CAF, Centro de Apoyo Familiar, I always tell people, if you want to learn 3 words in Spanish, there you go, Center for Assistance to Families. So you can tell that you're almost bilingual. We can go to the next slide. I'll give you a little bit of background about the organization, our mission. We are, our mission is actually to transform community through economic, social, educational empowerment in collaboration with community and faith-based organizations. So I really wanted you to see some of the highlights that the collaboration and partnership that we have in order for us to fulfill the mission that we have. The next slide. Thank you. Yeah, the history of the organization, CAF was founded in 2006 in the state of Massachusetts. So I'm originally from the Dominican Republic. You can tell by my accent. And I was a little bit, part of my young adult life. I spend it in Lawrence, Massachusetts, where we have a high population of Dominicans and Puerto Ricans. And some of the things that I found as an immigrant, that's the reason why I decided to found this organization, is because there was such a huge gap with the organizations, the faith-based organizations, and all these great community-based organizations, and all these great agencies, local government agencies, a lot of programs going on, but people had no idea where to find it. As an immigrant, I have to spend years trying to find where to go in order to get the services that I needed, myself and my family, in that type 5 siblings, a single mother in a small town, not knowing what to do. So that was a little bit crazy. The organization grew out of that. And so in 2009, we decided to open up to expand here to the state of Maryland, 2017 in the state of Virginia, and just recently in DC. We are a housing counseling, as mentioned, and I'm a proud, I will say, the result of Unidos US, as Sam was talking before. I worked for Unidos US for many, many years, and I got the opportunity to get great mentors and really go out there to the ground and do the work that needed to be done here in the Washington Metro. So we can go to the next slide. These are some of the services that we have so that you know, and it's good for you to know because for the Latino community specifically, we understand that we don't need just one thing. We are in need of many things, and sometimes you might connect them with housing, but then at the same time they might need jobs, they might need health, they might need some resources related to food distribution. So we do some of this work, and some of the other we do it in partnership with amazing partners that we have. Currently, as a HUD approved counseling agency, as many of you as well, we do the pre-purchase counseling, the financial literacy, the foreclosure prevention, the rental counseling, credit rebuilding, all this great stuff. But we also have integrated the food distribution program. And the reason why we did that since 2014, we realized that there is a huge need of there's especially here in the state of Maryland, there's a lot of food deserts, and a lot of the families in this area, they are in need of food, of course, because that's part of surviving. But then at the same time, access to healthy food, not just any food. We realized we wanted to get people the opportunity to get healthy food where they can actually connect with a longer life. And so we decided to create this program in partnership with some other partners. Also, we engaged with environmental health education. Why? Because we realized we were putting people into homes, but what is happening inside the homes? How is the environment? How is the indoor environment for them? So we started to integrate within our home ownership program and a lot of the housing programs that we do, a lot of the environmental health education along the way. And as well, we do a lot of community organizing, which I'll talk to you about in a little bit. We can go to the next slide. So now, how to best reach or serve the Hispanic Latino consumers? I wanted to share, a list of services that we do for a reason. Because when you're dealing with the Latino community, as I mentioned before, we wanted to make sure that we can support them holistically. And in many ways, sometimes the need might not just be housing, as I said, might be something else. And so by that, we have been able to connect with a lot of the Latino community. And here are some of the areas that we use to be successfully in reaching out the consumer. We serve about 15,000 families. Mainly, I will say 85% of them are Latino. And some of the ways that we do that, we're starting to realize that social media, especially Facebook for the younger, and Instagram, obviously, for the younger generation, it was easier for us to find out. A lot of the Latino now, they seems to be more engaged in social media. And so we put a lot of the outreach, a lot of the marketing, a lot of the informational material, we make it available in social media. We do community events. We try to be in as many community events as possible because we want to make sure that people start to put in our name with the resources that are there in the community. We want to make sure that they start building the trust, which we have been able to be very successful because of that opportunity, making sure that whatever we can be to handle the information, some information to the families, but also at the same time, making sure they can connect with us and they can see that we're here to help them. Now is Hispanic Heritage Month, so there's a lot of great opportunities for you guys, everybody, to go out there. It's gonna be a lot of events going on. If you can go, just be part of those events. Make sure people can see you, they can talk to you. Latino community, they're not shy. They will talk to you, but they need to find that welcoming space for them to come to you and reach out and, you know, make the connections. We realize also the radio and TV is very successful. We have, for the last 7 years, I've been hosting a radio show here in the Washington Metro, which has been very successful. We reach over 30,000 families or more every week, where we're able to really educate them on issues and connect them. So right after the radio airs, I get, you know, hundreds of phone calls sometimes, people calling, wanting to know where they can go, get information, because we try to make it as resourceful as possible for this family. Of course, TV is very, still very important for the Latino community. You still call this older generation and you will see them here and looking at the news at the end of, you know, the evening in 6 o'clock evening news or later on. So they always will be engaged. Also, of course, word of mouth, you know, one of the things that I started to realize, and more and more, the best way, believe it or not, to get people connected to a lot of the services that we do is through word of mouth. And I'll give you an example. We just had this amazing program that recently passed, which is the rental assistance. Many families at first were not taking advantage of those programs. Of course, they were challenging, such as, you know, the digital issues. A lot of people didn't know how to deal with that, but they also had this question like, how come they're gonna give me so much money? Will I ever qualify? So we noticed that a lot of the Latino community was not really participating because most of the marketing of that was coming through sources of outreach that they were not feeling comfortable. The minute that we started to get these sources of information through the families themselves by getting their experience and also through the other partnership that we got locally, we started to see more people taking advantage of that. Of course, we collaborate with schools, small businesses, but number 7, we have a high number of faith-based organizations that we work with. I think that will be I will say that's been one of the greatest collaboration that we have created in the organization, where we have really become very successful with. We can go to the next slide. And I'll tell you a little bit more about the faith-based organization network that we have. It's called CAF Connectors. Right now, we created it back in, that's, you know, one of the reasons why we decided to build the organization, because we realized there was such a need for the leadership, especially for the faith-based leaders, Latino faith-based leaders, to understand, you know, how community services work, how can they be connected, how they can be empowered and educated, because we found that a lot of the immigrant community, that's where they go. When they're dealing with some issues, that's the places they trust. So they will go there. That's part of my story. That's where I went. And, you know, unfortunately, my faith leaders was not able to help me because he didn't know himself how to help me and my family back then. But getting them empowered and informed and giving them the resources, it has given us the opportunity to reach out to a number of families. So through this network, we got right now about over 350 churches or faith-based organizations that we work with. We provide capacity building to them. We make sure that once they are empowered as leaders, they can empower other leaders. Why? Because when it's coming from them, from one leader to the other, they get to be more comfortable accepting whatever is coming from outside connection, I will say, or an outside source from them. So we have created a holistic model where they are able to not just be empowered, but also empower the community where they are. We're working in collaboration again with them. And with that, we have created what is called the promotora model, the promoters. We can go to the next slide. And the reason why I want to highlight this is because through the promotora, the promoters, we realized that as an organization, we are very small. We don't have so many staff, but we are able to reach a lot of family. And then you might ask, how do you do it? Well, the way that we do it is that we try to multiply ourselves. We try to create, the training model where every community or neighborhood, they have promotoras or promoters that can help us be the connector between CAF and the community. So we have taken the time, and today we have over 75 promoters that are, completely certified, trained by CAF, and they are training different subjects, including credit, financial literacy, home ownership. And so the way that we do it, we make sure that they can be train the trainer so they can bring this information to the community, but also at the same time, they able to provide other services and connect the community with other services that are provided, not just by CAP, but also by other community agencies that are provided. We have obviously, as I mentioned, different topics that we cover. That is not just housing. We do a lot of environmental health and environmental justice, but we try to create leaders, young leaders and sometimes older leaders, to be engaged, somebody that look like the community, bringing the information, but also at the same time engaging and making that connection between us, some government agencies that need to be, brought into the community, and also other community services that are there. We can go to the next slide. Just finalizing on these promotoras and organizing outreach. We do a lot of organizing, as I mentioned, and we have done a lot of, we have decided to do a lot of charlas or workshops, seminars in the churches and also in different places in the neighborhoods. And we do it in partnership with them. They help us get that done. They help us bring that trust into the community, and also making sure that people take advantage of these programs. Remember how I mentioned to you all these great programs that are coming out? A lot of the Latino community, they won't take advantage of those. Doesn't matter how great they look, unless they hear that is coming from people that they trust. Why? Because they have been misused, misled so many times, and they are afraid. And sometimes translating a flyer or translating a document is not the same than getting that information from leaders like the faith-based leaders, that they can come and share what it is that they have to share that is provided by us into their neighborhood and into the community. We always try to provide a stipend because they're volunteer, but then at the same time, what we have developed, I will say, is the future of our leaders, but then at the same time, the future of housing counselors that will be coming into this field because they fall in love with the work that we do. Obviously, they do it as a volunteer now, but out of that, we got a lot of our housing counselors today. That's where they were. They were volunteers, they were promotoras. Now they are full certified housing counselors working in our agency and many other agencies throughout the Washington Metro. We can go to the next slide. And obviously this is where we are, but we need to make sure that as Latino and, as we reach out to the Latino community, we have to be very mindful of the culture. I'm very grateful. During 2020 census, we were very successful here in the state of Maryland. We had an increase like never before of getting Latinos to be counted. And the way that we were able to do that was using the list of best way to reach the Latino community that I listed before, especially working with the faith-based community. We had an amazing turnout, and now our population, we at 12%, where before we were like 0.5. So we're making great progress, and I think that we'll continue to do it together. So thank you so much. Again, there's more. If you need to reach me, and I think this next slide is my information, feel free to do that. If you want to organize your community, your faith-based community, wherever you are, we are more than happy to give you the tools and to give you the opportunity to best work for your Latino community, wherever you are. So thank you so much again for the opportunity.
Wow, thanks so much, Valkyria. That was a really wonderful presentation and great suggestions for doing outreach. I was furiously taking notes. So we're going to go to our questions right now. There was a question in the chat. I don't want to miss it because it was right in the beginning. Let me see if I can grab it. Okay, what is the main reason Latinos aren't getting conventional loans? And anybody who can answer this should answer. More than one of you can answer. So whoever wants to start.
I'll jump in just to give others a chance to chime in. But as I mentioned in my comments, the lack of cash and intergenerational wealth and family wealth to make a down payment probably is a big factor behind the use of FHA loans instead of conventional.
We definitely see that the credit score plays a big component of the fact that FHA does have lower credit score requirements than conventional. And so Latinos are often not necessarily that they have bad credit, but they just don't know how to really use credit. They haven't used credit because they'll pay cash for things. And so this ends up hurting them when they apply for a mortgage.
Okay, great. Thank you. So there's a couple of questions about the I-10 mortgages. So first of all, somebody thought they weren't available. Could you expand on availability? And then similarly, somebody asked about where the housing counselors can find resources for those, like which banks and mortgages work with the I-10.
I can probably take this one as well. So I-10 loans right now have definitely been a product that has been not frequently used. Depends on your region. There are regions, there are banks, for example, a bank that I like a lot is East West Bank, but they're not all over the nation. And they have a specific product. What we find though is that as soon as they launch the product, they have a backflow of requests and the line is longer. So that's one option in certain states. Right now, we have a couple of lenders that have launched Finally Home. Finally Home is a national program for I-10 borrowers, and it really just launched the beginning of this year. We're looking to see right now how it really develops because it's in the starting stages of the way they're underwriting it, the way they're, really processing. So it's been a little slow to really actually close, but Finally Home is a great product that I feel that as we continue moving forward, the rest of this year and really onto 2023, we will probably see a lot of great things from it, and more loan originators, loan officers will really need to kind of jump on board with the program nationwide, because there's, for example, here in Nevada, we have some loan officers that are doing it. They're getting their hands, they're getting their hands on the program and really looking at all the guidelines that they need, all the requirements, so that they can better prepare the home buyer. But we are finding that there are certain markets where there's just not a lender that's raising their hand and saying, hey, I really want to get more, details on this program, or I want to understand it more. So we do definitely need more loan originators that across the nation want to service this specific niche. But the program's here. I think it's its baby stages right now. But I look forward to in 2023 see a lot more of this product, of this type of loan go across. We've had I-10 products over the last 10, 20 years, but these loan products haven't really been good loan products for the first-time home buyer I-10 borrower. It has been more for I-10 borrowers that have 20% down, high interest rates. So this would really not be kind of the customer that comes into a housing counselor, a down payment assistance office and wants kind of the guidance. So this Finally Home product is probably going to be that great product for first-time home buyers that are using the I-10 program, because it only requires, the requirement is 0% down. They can go from 0 to 5% down, and the rate will vary. What we're seeing right now, it'll vary from anywhere from 6.5% to around 8%, which is relatively comfortable for the for an I-10 product.
Okay, so I will say there were a couple of comments in the chat that I'll read out. Pedro Martinez mentions that FHA loans are promoted as the safest type of I-10 loans, and Daniel Ruggiero from Ohio says that Premier Nationwide Lending out of Texas currently has an I-10 loans in Ohio. And he thinks that maybe there's other states where they have a presence. It does require a 20% down payment, and of course the interest rate is quite high. And Bruce, did you want to add something there?
Well, yeah, a couple things. So one is, I think self-help has does self-help credit union does ITIN loans. So where they work is an opportunity. The other thing is maybe we should do a leaders call specifically on ITIN lending, both on opportunity and kind of what's involved with it, and how housing counseling can intersect. So hopefully the participants on this call can help us assemble the right team. I do appreciate Nora's comment. Having worked on this over a long time, over the last several decades, there are some highly predatory products out there that can be very difficult, very expensive, but also there's to get an appropriate fixed rate mortgage for people that's manageable. That's a really good opportunity, and it's understandable the interest rate might be a little bit higher, but being able to people have the security that they get from home ownership, it's an important place in the marketplace. And I know that some lenders who worked in it have been really remarked about how faithful these payers are and how committed they are to the mortgage. So it's an interesting place in the market.
And you're getting thumbs up on the Leaders in Housing Counseling webinar idea. And then the last kind of question statement is, we are seeing in San Antonio, Texas, an increase in subprime loans to Latinos that do make the income or have the credit score needed. Is there a national effort to educate families about avoiding these types of loans? Does anybody know, Sam or Yannicka, do you know?
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. Oh, go ahead, Yannicka.
Go ahead, Sam, please.
No, I was going to say, I don't know off the top of my head of a concerted effort specifically in this area, but I'd be happy to follow up with some of my team members and circle back with folks and see if there's any sort of broader conversations happening, or if there's something we could put together and get in the works, if that would be helpful.
Great.
I think it would be super valuable to continue to hear from you all in your community about the incidence of these subprime and abusive products that might be resurfacing. I'm not aware either of a national effort, but I also think it ties nicely in some ways, right, to the ITIN conversation you just had. There's the need to be able to distinguish between a safe extension of safe credit to accommodate borrower special needs and the way they present to the system that don't necessarily pose risk. And then there's the abusive products that take advantage of people that we need to really help folks navigate. And it's such an important thing. And I noticed one of your counselors talking about having difficulty finding the kinds of training. So I think there's that this is a conversation that's really worth continuing to have.
So I would like to echo that. And we are always interested in specifics on predatory loans. So who's the lender? What does the product look like? What are the terms? There's different ways to elevate these. There's certainly a big regulatory field around some of it. But what we really need to understand is the mechanics of it. So seeing anything about the terms, being if they're loan papers that you or offer papers that have details about the loans, we are very interested in this. And a lot of us have a lot of background, unfortunately, in the ugly side of predatory lending. So there's a lot of people who could be resources on this. So glad that the person from San Antonio elevated it. We're interested in where it might be occurring anywhere.
Great. Oh, I was going to say it's the last question, but it looks like, let's see. So Sherry Pace in PA, we were told that balloon loan subprimes, negative amortization loans were no longer legal in Pennsylvania. Is that correct? I don't know.
There's enough in Pennsylvania rules.
So yeah, I don't know about Pennsylvania specifically. I mean, they're not qualified mortgages. So a big part of that market had dried up. But if you're seeing those loans, we'd be very interested in looking at them. I'm not aware of anything in Pennsylvania that, to be honest, while I'm in Pennsylvania, I haven't followed this closely in some years, but I'd be surprised. But the real kind of Dodd-Frank was the vehicle that really change the marketplace on this, and it was about defining what would be acceptable, and then it becomes what's acceptable as investment in the field as when they define qualified mortgages. So if we're seeing products that look like that, we'd be very interested in hearing about it. Sherry, calling you out right now.
All right, well, and that is the last of our questions. Thanks again to all of our panelists for a really wonderful presentation. Oh, there's one thing just popped right in here. Oh, Sherry just says okey doke, Bruce.
Good, thank you.
Okay.
I really appreciate you being on top of these things. Good.
All right, and so Bruce, I'm going to hand it over to you to wrap it up.
Excellent. Well, I mean, very helpful. I think this is part of a continuing conversation. I think given the changes in the marketplace, we are very interested in seeing where all this takes us, and really appreciate the roles that NAHREP, who's always had tremendous leadership in this field, Unidos US, who obviously is deeply involved with our work every day, and Urban Institute, who does give us a tremendous amount of work. And I do really appreciate Walkiria's Pool's particular role and our organization that's been very helpful, and we look forward to working more closely with all of you. And I hope in the upcoming year we'll be talking more about what tools we can use to really increase home ownership. So we're just going to do a quick plug on becoming a member of NHRC. Membership dues are based on the size of your organization's budget. It's really partly what keeps us going, and it's a major part of our budget. And we need to have the flexibility of doing things that aren't funded by anybody else, so that we can lobby and we can take stands that are strong opinions that are not affecting our funding sources. And really membership dues, it represents that. It's also a vote of confidence, so we appreciate that. And we're at the time now where groups need to do their renewals. So we're hoping for a big flood by the end of the year. Really appreciate the groups that have already jumped in. And now we have an added benefit of this very nice mug, which you'll get. It's for renewing or joining, being a first-time membership. And there'll be always a discount on the credit reports that you get through the largest provider of credit reports in the country, CoreLogic Credco. It's pretty substantial savings, and for many organizations, it actually pays for the membership and more. The Savvy online student loan service is great. They do a lot of things that are free, and you should absolutely use them. They do have a very useful service if you want to use them for filing and maintaining your accounts. This is especially important for people in the public service forgiveness program, because it makes it a lot easier to create the accountability. Make sure that you're in the right loan product to qualify, and that you have program that you do all the filings. I would just say it's very important around student loans that there's flexibility around the student loan forgiveness that's about to expire. So very, very important that if you have any staff members, if you if you've been looking at the public service forgiveness program, or any clients, there's an increased flexibility right now that's part of the COVID legislation that is not going to, there's no indication that they're going to extend it any further, but there's greater flexibility about which loans qualify, and using the Savvy, the free part of the Savvy website is enough to help you figure out that. But do that today or tomorrow. I mean, really, this is we're running out of the timeline on this one, and it'll be helpful to those people that actually qualify and get into it. And also on the forgiveness, the one thing I would add is that the programs are slated to actually be in place. You can apply, but there's going to be a huge flood in December and January. So for people that that this would apply to, it's really valuable to get your application in early. And and deal with your servicer now rather than the next couple of months, because they are going to be swamped. I know they're already getting a lot of things, and they're not staffing up in the way we had hoped they would. So getting all this stuff done in early would be really helpful. We do notify groups about the less routine funding opportunities and things you might not normally hear about or think about. We know that you've got some traditional funding sources. We're trying not to spread those around as much as things that you might not normally hear about. Those go out to the members. And then, of course, you got the satisfaction of supporting our good work and keeping Christy lobbying, keeping Ellie doing our outreach, and Eric doing all the great outreach they're doing, keeping Ebony, keeping us all managed, and keeping me around advocating as well. So all of that's really valuable. In our 10th anniversary, it'd be nice to really increase our membership roles with more groups. So thanks again for everything everybody is doing out there. Ellie pitched the upcoming webinars. You'll see them on the leaders list as well. So feel free to spread the word, get more people to get involved with us. We've had a good year so far, but we've got some pretty strong things happening in the next few weeks. Thanks a lot. Bye now.